Section 4 covers the beginnings of congruent figures, congruent polygons. We will focus mainly on triangles, but they do throw some quadrilaterals into this section as well. But we will focus on triangles. So we already talked about what it means to be congruent, right? If two objects have the same measure, then they are congruent. Definition of congruence. But we need to talk about what it means to be congruent polygons. Polygons. For two polygons to be congruent, two things must be true. Number one, they have the same size. So size meaning, how large they are. And number two, they have to have the same shape. Now, if we think about in a figure, in a polygon, what controls the size and shape? So let me just draw a triangle. I know we've been talking about triangles. So if you think about a triangle, the size of a triangle deals with how long the sides are. So size deals with the side lengths. So if you have the same size, you have the same side lengths. Okay? Same size, same side lengths. The shape, how these lines are bent, has to do with the three angles. So shape has to do with angles. So if you have the same shape, you have the same three angle measures. So what does this really mean if it has the same sides? It means your sides are congruent. What does it mean if you have the same shape? It means your angles are congruent. Okay? So we're going to have congruent sides and congruent angles. But how do we kind of match them up? Well, there's going to be a correspondence that we're going to talk about. There's going to be a correspondence between sides and angles. And those corresponding sides, those corresponding angles will be congruent. Okay? There is this idea, okay? Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. C, P, C, T, C. I'll do it in different color. C, P, C, T, C. C, P, C, T, C. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So it might not mean much right now, but we're going to do an example and we're going to show what parts are corresponding and why they are congruent. Okay? That's C, P, C, T, C. Very important. So let's draw two. So this will be an example. I'm going to give you two triangles that are congruent. Okay? So here's a picture A, B, C. And here's another picture. We'll call it F, D, E. Okay? And in this picture it has the following markings. Okay, I'll put them in red. Alright, it has 1 and 1. It has 2 and 2, 3 and 3. And then it has 1 and 1. 2 and 2, 3 and 3. So we know, okay, I will tell you that the triangles are congruent. So I would say, okay, this is what you'd be given. You'd be given, so it's not a proof, this is just what you're given. Triangle. And we're going to say this triangle would be B, sorry, not BAC. It doesn't matter, but we'll just call it ABC. ABC is congruent to triangle. And now, I would give you the corresponding letters for ABC to name the other triangle. So if you look at A, the angle A has 2 marks. It goes first. So that means that the same angle in the other triangle that has 2 marks has to go first. So that would be angle F. And then B is next, has one marking, so D has one marking, so D goes next. D, and then C brings up the end, has 3, E has 3. So this might be something you're given, okay? All right. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle FDE. Notice not alphabetical order, right? So then what are the corresponding sides? What are the corresponding angles? That's the question. What are the corresponding sides? And what are the corresponding angles? Because by the phrase up there, corresponding sides and corresponding angles will be congruent, okay? So if we look, even if we just look at this congruence statement right here, okay? Side AB. So side AB has one congruent marking on it. So we go to the other picture. Which one has one congruent marking? FD. We have to follow the same order that we use. So if AB is the side, it's going to be congruent to FD. They will have the same length. Okay? If we go to BC next, side BC. Okay, let me scoot this up a little bit. If we look at side BC has 2 marks, so does DE. So if we follow the congruence statement, BC and DE will be congruent. And then lastly, if we go with AC, first and last, should be congruent to FE. If we look at the picture, AC, FE, 3 marks. So that's right. So there's your congruent, your corresponding sides that are congruent. So let's look at our angles. Okay, our angles, if we start with angle A, by the congruence statement, angle A should be congruent to angle F. If we look here, angle A has 2, angle F has 2. Angle B should be congruent with angle D. Angle B has 1, angle D has 1 marking. That's true. Angle C should be congruent with angle E. C has 3 markings, E has 3 markings. So there's your corresponding parts of congruent triangles that are congruent. Okay, so this is what we need to be able to do in this section. Okay, so we'll do maybe a couple examples of this, and then one with some numbers, and I'll be finished. Okay. So in this problem, okay, we're going to identify the corresponding the congruent triangles. Identify the congruent triangles, and then we're going to list the corresponding parts. List the congruent corresponding parts. Okay, and we'll do 2 examples here. All right. So let me draw the picture, and then you copy. Okay, so hopefully you pause this, copy this down, and then you get back with me. So we're going to try to identify the 2 congruent triangles. So I hope you see that this is one of the triangles. So let me use a different color. This is one triangle, and this is a second triangle. So these are the 2 congruent triangles. Now, can we name them correctly is the question. So let's start with this one, the one with D, E, and G. Let's put that one in alphabetical order. Okay, so triangle DEG is congruent. Now we have to jump to the other triangle and line up the corresponding parts. So D is the right angle. So that means F has to go first because it's the right angle over here. Okay, so D. Then we go to E. E has 1 congruent marking. G has 1 congruent marking. We go to G. And then we go to, now notice, okay, we'll talk about this in a second. And then we go from D to E down to G. G has 2 congruent markings here. E has 2 congruent markings there. So we go to E. So notice that these 2 triangles share a side. Right? That side is shared. Very interesting. But notice in the congruence statement, the letters don't go in the same order. Because if we're lining up the angles, right, E in triangle DEG lines up with G in triangle FGE. Very, very interesting. Okay? So don't let that confuse you. The letters don't have to line up. E does not have to go where E is. G does not have to go where G is. Okay? All right. So now let's list the sides and the angles. Okay. So if we start in this triangle, let's start with side DE. DE is going to be congruent with, DE is congruent with FG. They both have two markings, FG. Let's go to EG. EG. EG is this diagonal down here. Okay? EG is going to be congruent with GE. Well, if we think about EG and GE, aren't they one and the same? Yes. That's why there's only one side with three markings, because it's the same side. Okay? It's congruent to itself. And then lastly, we have DG. DG is this side right here. DG is congruent to FE. Okay? FE. So DG down here, FE up here. There's the congruent sides. Now the angles, since these triangles touch, we need to use three letters. Okay? We have to use three letters. So if we use angle, so if we're trying to talk about, let's go in order. Angle DEG. Okay? Angle DEG. Let me shift this way. Okay. Angle DEG. DEG, it's E is the vertex, so E is the middle letter. So we need to line that up with the same letters in the other triangle. So if we go DEG, we need to put FGE as its corresponding congruent angle. FGE. Then let's just keep going. So we did DEG, now let's do EGD. Okay? If EGD, that's the double angle. So we know that E has to be the vertex of our next angle. Just go in order. GEF. GEF, right there. And then lastly, so we did DEG, we did EGD, now do GDE. Is congruent, so DGE is this double angle, so I'm sorry, GDE is the right angle, so we need to get the right angle, which is F here, okay? So we just follow the same order, GDE, E, F, G. So we can just use this congruent statement to figure out the corresponding sides and angles. Okay, let's do one more of these, and I think that'll be good. One more of these will be fine. Okay, so let me write it first, and then you can write it after. Okay, so here's the picture that I have drawn, and again, please copy it, and then we need to talk about it. So the first thing that we need to do is identify the congruent triangles. So again, if you pick one, just go in alphabetical order. Let's pick the left one, HIJ. Is congruent. Now, we have to line up the angles. H has one angle marking, K has one angle marking. So K goes first. I has 2, L has 2. J has 3, J has 3. So there's your congruence statement, right? If you get that, then the rest is easy. The rest is very easy, because now we just list the corresponding sides that are congruent and the corresponding angles that are congruent. So if we start HI, side HI, side high. Side high, side HI has 2 markings, so it should be corresponding with this line, or this segment KL, which has 2 markings. We follow the right order, HI, KL. Keep going down the line. Segment IJ is congruent. IJ should be congruent to LJ. IJ has 3, LJ has 3. And then we go, segment JH is congruent to segment JK. Just using the congruent statement. JH has 1, JK has 1. Next, we move on to the angles. Now, some of these angles we don't have to use 3 letters. If we look at H, there's only one angle there. So angle H should be congruent to angle K. Again, K only has one angle there, so we can do it, and they are one marking per, so they are congruent. Angle I is congruent to angle L. Same idea. They have only one angle at them, right? There's not multiple angles at I and L, so two markings. We can use one letter, and they are congruent. But now J is the tricky one, right? Because there's multiple angles at J, so we have to actually label J. Let's call it IJK. J should be in the middle because it is the vertex. So IJH. IJH. We follow the same letters from the congruence statement. IJH, LJK. And there's the congruent statement with the triangles and the corresponding congruent parts. So we'll do more in class on Monday. Thanks for watching. That's the end of the video.